Congress choose status quo? Will the Congress, in an existential crisis, choose change? I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. Our focus on the broadcast this evening, of course, is on the polls for the post of Congress president. These elections taking place after 25 years. The last time that a non-Gandhi led this party was back in the late 90s. That man was Sitaram Kesri. This time we have Mallikarjun Kharge going up against Shashi Tharoor. While Mr. Kharge is talking about working under the Gandhi family, Shashi Tharoor is talking about changing how the Congress runs. Over 9,000 delegates would have chosen one of these two men to lead the party. The Gandhi family is saying we are neutral. Sonia Gandhi today said this is the day she'd been waiting for years. But Mr. Kharge is seen by most observers to be the unofficial choice of the family. There you see Rahul Gandhi standing in line as part of his Bharat Jodo Yatra to cast his vote. The Congress, as we said, is in an unprecedented political crisis. Who it chooses to lead the party could have a direct bearing on how it is perceived outside of the party circles by the average Indian. Has the Congress chosen wisely? We'll find out in 2 days from now. But the stakes are high, and let's introduce our panel this evening to discuss what will be the consequences of the choice that the Congress makes. On the program today, joining us is Subhajit Naskar. He's a professor at Jadavpur University in Bengal. Good to see you, sir. Also joining us on the program today is Sugata Srinivasaraju, who's an author and journalist. Most recently, a book on Deve Gowda, if I'm not wrong. Good to see you, sir. Also joining us, Rasheed Kidwai. I would say easily the most knowledgeable person on the inner workings of the Congress party, also a prolific author. Sanjay, lapsed, sacked spokesperson of the Congress party, someone who's been cheering Shashi Tharoor on, is with us. And also joining us is from London today, Kapil Komireddi, well-known writer and author, someone who says he's not without criticism of Shashi Tharoor, but it would be devastatingly stupid, I'm paraphrasing him, this is not the language he used, for the party to choose status quo at this point. Welcome everybody to the program. And Sanjay, if I may start with you. You're obviously someone who's gone public with your support for Shashi Tharoor. The Gandhi family is saying it's neutral. Has it been neutral? Have these elections been fair?
Well, Barkha, the best way for the Gandhi family to articulate its message of the fact that they were not going to be, intervening in the selection or the election of the Congress president would have been to publicly make a statement that every Congress delegate would vote on their conscience, or they would be independent enough to do so. By not actually sending that message with complete clarity, I think there has been this speculation that Mr. Kharge is eventually going to be the winner, and which I think has taken away the wind out of the sails of what was a fantastic opportunity for the Congress party to demonstrate the fact that it was biting the bullet on electoral and democratic reforms within the party. To say that in private conversations, that is what Sonia Gandhi has said, I mean, that is certainly not enough. You don't need intermediaries and interlocutors to tell the press that the Gandhi family is actually staying in the sidelines and leaving the better candidate to win. I think this is where the Congress basically does half jobs. You can't be half pregnant when you're actually trying to create a kind of new dynamic
And,
institution.
and briefly, before I go to Rashid, what are the stakes? What are the stakes of this election?
I have been saying this publicly to stop the BJP's ruthless, remorseless, and at the moment the most unstoppable juggernaut. You need a reinvigorated Congress party. I think all of us in the panel will probably agree with that. The bottom line is that the party doesn't seem to understand it. You see, the problem that I face with many people, they come and tell me, we all know what the Congress needs to do. Why doesn't the Congress know it itself? And that is the $1 million question. That today, if you have, and I'm being very honest about it, a Shashi Tharoor as a Congress president, the perception of the Congress changes, that it is truly moving away from the culture of a dynastic obsession that it has had. And that's good for not just Shashi or the Congress. It's even good for the Gandhi family, because end of day, the Gandhi family is inextricably intertwined, the famous cliche, with the Congress. So if the
Indeed.
Gandhis look good, the Congress looks good, and the Congress looks good, the Gandhis look good. So I don't know how many of these, what I call is very obsequious people within the Congress, the sycophants as we popularly call them, miss the plot, that if you want to be part of a winning, kind of a team, then you got to make sure that Shashi
Well,
Tharoor does not
well,
lose.
you know that you sound like you already believe that Shashi Tharoor will lose, and that in itself is telling. Before I come to Rasheed, I want to just play out a very brief clip from Sonia Gandhi, who said she'd been waiting for this day for years, and that begs many questions. But let's listen in.
Are you happy, ma'am?
Are you happy?
Ma'am, are you happy?
I have been waiting for a long time for this day. I have been waiting for a long time.
I have been waiting for a long time for this day. It's taken 25 years, Rasheed. Some of us are old enough to remember the last time a non-Gandhi led this party was Sitaram Kesari. He was ousted unceremoniously, as you yourself have written in your books. At that time, the rumor was that at one point he was even locked in the party headquarters bathroom. And Sonia Gandhi was then placed as the head of the party. Of course, the cynics will say, why was Sonia Gandhi waiting? This could have happened ages ago. Anyway, it's happened now. What do you make of how it's happened?
I think, Barkha, every political individual is a bundle of contradictions, and Mr. Rahul Gandhi is no exception. So, on the one hand, he talks about, sort of Naya Congress and trying to usher in a lot of reforms. On the other hand, he's a very much status quoist, and I think Gandhis want to control the party. Somewhere it may not be very visible, but that's their game plan. Just to, keep, because they think that without them, the party would disintegrate. And this is a real problem. I think in this election, one good thing is, even if Mr. Shashi Tharoor loses, there is always going to be an opportunity, because from today onwards, there is a sort of another formal camp, someone who can lead the Congress. Even if Mr. Tharoor manages to get, let us say, 20% of votes, it will be a very, very good performance, it will be a remarkable performance. It would mean actually over 50% people want some kind of change. Whether Mr. Tharoor is co-opted or not, we would wait to see that. In my assessment, he would not be. And how Mr. Kharge operates.
What do
If
you
Mr.
what do
Kharge
you
goes,
mean by co-opted? What do you mean by co-opted?
I mean, if I give, Hillary Clinton example, the way, in the primaries she fought against Barack Obama, and Obama made her, Secretary of State. I think that's a bit rich. That's a two very different political cultures we're talking. But even if he's drafted in the Congress Working Committee and made a party general secretary or something like that, but the real problem is Mr. Kharge would not have powers to appoint. Can he have his own political secretary? Can he have a treasurer? Can he have, would he have a say in the CWC, in the selection of CWC? So all these questions are there, because this is a new situation. Barkha, that 1997 example is not apt, because in 1997 Kesari was Congress president, so he was representing, and it was Kesari versus Sharad Pawar and Rajesh Pilot. In this case, the Gandhis are supposedly not in the fray. So what will be the mandate? Like I've written today, how Mr. Kharge is going to deal with Rajasthan question. Would he tackle, a defiant Ashok Gehlot? If he would not, then, what does it mean? Is he for the status quo? So there are a lot of questions are there. I think with the passage of time, we'll find an answer. But I think from today onward, Mr. Tharoor will have a real political career. It depends how he, kind of shapes it.
So
But
either way, you're saying he may not become Congress president, but his upward trajectory is established, and that's a very interesting point, because some would say
I
he
think,
might
yes,
be
one line.
punished.
I think
Yeah.
Mr. Tharoor will be better off losing this election.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Well, that's from what Kapil Komireddi thinks. Writing for the print, he argued very provocatively that India is one election away from what he called a Hindu Pakistan, and who the Congress chooses next could have a direct bearing on the fortunes of the Congress. Now, Kapil, before I come to you, I just want to play out a short clip from an interview I did with Shashi a few days ago. And what is intriguing is that I have never heard actually a Congress leader, Rasheed will correct me if I'm wrong, come out so openly in challenging the unequivocal authority of the Gandhis. He said if he becomes Congress president, he sees no reason to take his instructions from the Gandhi family. This is in rank contradiction to what Mr. Kharge has said. Listen in, and then I'll come to you.
Surely a president who's elected in a process from which they have excluded themselves will have a certain amount of power and authority of his own, or I could have said her own, but all the three names you talked about
Yeah.
are men, that person would have a certain legitimacy and power of his own, which I think will constitute, if you like, the authority with which to deal with the party. Now, I'm not in any way criticizing the Gandhi family. I think that they are somebody, as a family, their DNA is inextricably tied up with the DNA of the Congress party. A self-respecting president would essentially want to be exercising his own authority, especially if he's won it through a hard-fought election.
You know, when I hear you say this, a self-respecting president would want to exercise his own authority. People would listen to this and say, Shashi, this is exactly the reason the Gandhis will ensure you never win. What would you say to them?
Possibly. I'd say possibly. I mean, I know I've looked. You're not the only person to make these comments. I'm surrounded by cynics every day in our political space, and I've been hearing this a lot.
Right. I do think that it's been a while, Kapil, since somebody actually said, I don't need to take my orders from the Gandhi family if I do become Congress president. It is not what Mallikarjun Kharge is saying. You have strong opinions. You write in your print piece that you're not without criticism of Shashi Tharoor, but given the options, you think he's the party's best bet. Go ahead.
Yes, my criticism of Shashi, the book, I read his book, Why I'm a Hindu, and I thought he didn't really take into account the horror show that is the Hindu caste system fully into account. And I think you cannot arrive at a full assessment of Hinduism without actually taking into account the system of segregation that is enshrined in our heritage, right? You have to take that into account. That was my principal criticism of him. But this is not about Shashi Tharoor. This is about changing the status quo. This is about India being one election away from becoming formally a Hindu Pakistan. I think if Modi wins another term, he will probably attack the constitution, the formal wording of the constitution. And the way to stop him from doing that is to have a revived opposition. And the only way you can revive the opposition is to change the way they're doing things. Was it Einstein who said that if you keep doing the things the same way and expect different results, you're an idiot, right? And the Congress keeps doing this the same way. And I think they need to change now. And Mr. Kharge, who is, I write in my piece, I acknowledge the fact that, he's had to overcome really embedded, entrenched prejudices. But right now, when our democracy is in mortal peril, he is a candidate of the status quo. And I think that is untenable. That is why I think it is time for Congress to elect Shashi. But precisely because his election would threaten the interests within the Congress party of the ruling dynasty, he will not be the president. This is not an election. This is a stitch-up. Right from the word go, this is a stitch-up. Let's remember that. When the results are out, do not make the mistake of calling this a fair election. This has been a stitch-up from day one.
This is not an election, it is a stitch-up. I want to bring in Sugata Srinivasaraju now, whose writings are quite different and argue from a completely different perspective, as does Professor Naskar. Now, you heard Kapil Sugata refer to the sort of prejudices that Mallikarjun Kharge has had to fight. You make the argument that Shashi Tharoor's cheerleaders are the elite, the deracinated liberals. They're out of touch with the sort of grassroots politics of India. I put this to Shashi, and he said, he short of saying, what the hell, he said, I'm a 3-term elected member of parliament. That is much more grassroots than, quote unquote, the Rajya Sabha members in my party who are criticizing me. Why do you believe that there's a certain element of bias when it comes to the appraisal of Mr. Kharge, Mr. Srinivasaraju?
Thank you, Barkha. I don't think Mr. Kharge has been understood at all. See, with Kharge, in my piece that you refer to, I don't say is the best solution at this. For the Congress, but he's not. He's better than Taru, is what I argue. Until you find the next best solution, Mr. Kharge is the best solution for the Congress at this point of time, because politics is about symbolism. There are social justice ideas which Mr. Kharge symbolizes. And Mr. Kharge is presented as status quo, which I don't think is correct, because Mr. Tharoor, on the other hand, is the status quo because the Congress has been rigged by technocratic, by a certain kind of technocratic imagination for a very long time, and it's a certain kind of Anglophone elite which has controlled the Congress party. So it's a very, very welcome thing that Mr. Kharge has been put up. Mr. Gehlot would have been better. See, I mean, if you look at the responses within the Congress party itself, I mean, it's one thing to say that it's all rigged. I mean, he's the official candidate, etc., etc. But why is Mr. Shashi Tharoor not inspiring a certain kind of rebellion within the Congress at all? Because I mean, Shashi Tharoor does not come across as a person who will sort of win an election for the Congress party. Here, it's not actually about Mr. Kharge has a lot of things to do after he becomes the president. He has to build a fantastic coalition inside the party to take on Mr. Modi. But Mr. Tharoor is already being presented as the best counter to Modi. And I feel that by Mr. Tharoor talking extensively about this election being rigged, or this election being sort of clandestinely being Kharge being supported by the Gandhi family, he has sort of played into the hands of the BJP. He has delegitimized the election even before the results are out. So he is going to be Barkha, he is going to be a terrible embarrassment to the Congress later. He is going to be an embarrassment to himself, because he will be a stick. The BJP will use him as a stick to beat up the Congress each time they open their mouth.
Okay, I'm coming to Subhajit in just a second. I'm seeing hands go up for brief interjections. First Kapil, then Sanjay, and then I'll come to you, Professor Subhajit. Go ahead, Kapil.
Yeah, Sugata has made a series of points that are completely detached from from facts and from recent history. He says that Kharge is the best option. Actually, we have not only had a glimpse into Kharge's leadership, we are living with its consequences. He was the leader of the Congress party in the Lok Sabha between 2015 and 2019. What did he achieve there? Please, could you name a single reform? And you say that by virtue of being a Dalit, he's going to somehow mobilize the Dalit voters of India. How many seats does Congress win as a result of him leading the Lok Sabha, the party in the Lok Sabha? You say Shashi Tharoor is out of touch. If anyone's out of touch here, it's you, Sugata. I'm sorry to say. He has won 3 terms from a communist redoubt, and you sit here and you say you dash off an armchair opinion that he's delegitimizing this election. He has taken great pains to say that this election is completely legitimate. You say this election is being delegitimized by him. Talk about giving him voter lists without names, without phone numbers of voters. Yeah. Talk about Kharge. Sorry, just one second. Kharge, the tribune of the oppressed, traveling in a private plane. I mean, who's paying for that, by the way, just out of curiosity?
Okay, Sugata, just give me a moment. I'll let Sanjay add a point, go to Professor Subhajit, and then come back to you, just so that everybody has their say and we keep this moving. Sanjay, briefly, please, so I can go to Professor Naskar.
No, absolutely. Barkha, on a lighter vein, I think Sugata should do his next biography on Mr. Kharge, or probably he already is. But on a very, very serious note, I think what Sugata has completely forgotten is that I can understand his love for Mr. Kharge, but for God's sake, this is about the people of India. And I can tell you, there is an urban middle class. And there is also, by the way, Indian industry. There is also India's youth. There is also a new emerging aspirational culture that is emerging in tier 2, tier 3 cities. And I don't think Mr. Kharge inspires that. Bottom line is, who can lead the Congress to a better performance, if not a win in 2024? And that, if anybody believes is Mr. Kharge, then I need to tell you bluntly, they're living in a fool's paradise. And to make anybody who speaks good English, who has an intellectual philosophy, who lives probably, very intelligently in various literature festivals, and one who can take on the battle of Hinduism versus Hindutva in a book, and to call that person elitist is, I think, revealing our own, in my opinion, intellectual
Can I jump in here? I want to bring in Professor Subhajit here, who has, I saw on your Twitter timeline, taken strong sort of objections to several things that Sanjay Jha has said, and here he is in the flesh and blood almost for you to disagree with. Now, here's my question. If we emphasize Mr. Kharge's caste, if we say that any criticism of Mr. Kharge as the candidate is casteist, that's not a fair argument. There's also the fact that he has tied himself to the status quo as represented by the Gandhi family. He has undermined the authority of the post of Congress president by repeatedly saying that he will take his orders from the Gandhi family, Subhajit. And I read, Rasheed can tell us more about this, that he named his children after Priyanka and Rahul. Now, to me, to take this story into the contemporary voter and expect them not to see him as a sycophant. And if we say that to say you're casteist, that doesn't seem fair. So I want to hear from you, Subhajit, why you think Mr. Kharge, like Sugata, is the best bet for the Congress, and why you think criticism of him is somehow some sort of casteist elitism by those who are doing it.
Well, Barkha, I'll just tell you that caste, as the discussion has already been mentioned, about caste. Caste is it's needless to say that caste is a defining feature of the Indian society, and it's embedded in the entire public and private discourses. So there's nothing wrong to mention caste, and especially Indian political discourse has this specter of caste. And one of the reasons why BJP has today risen and created a political, or let's say social juggernaut, is because of the kind of caste engineering that they have very, very successfully made.
But they wouldn't have been able to do it without the popularity of the Prime Minister. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but there are many reasons why the BJP wins. There is a whole other show needed on the BJP's politics. But Mr. Modi's popularity, you take him out of the equation, you put all of the other equations, and the result would be different.
Here comes a very important point that Mr. Raju has mentioned in his Times of India article, and he says, and I kind of agree with this, where he says that the cultural equations, the cultural counter and the economic counter of the Congress, and this is a very, very important point, I think. And it's not only minus Modi in the BJP and RSS combined has very, very successfully given an alternative cultural counter, which is a Hindutva supremacist counter. And Congress has basically has been in doldrums in terms of giving a cultural counter to BJP's Hindutva supremacism. Now the point is that somebody like Mr. Kharge, who has basically risen through the ranks from the grassroots, is somebody who has been ideologically very, very committed. And when I say this, I'm also talking about Mr. Tharoor. Mr. Tharoor has on many occasions, and if you read Why I'm Hindu, if you read his recent work on Dr. Ambedkar, he has been kind of trying to balance there, and he is not taking a very, very radical stance on where BJP is standing today. And let me add the last line here. And this is also with regards to Mr. Kharge. This is a historical moment, which is what I think, because this can basically set a lot of historical wrongs. And one of the historical wrongs that has been mentioned is by none other than Dr. Ambedkar himself, and he himself has written a whole book called "What Congress and Gandhi Have Done to the Untouchables." So, since we are living in a political specter where the Dalit tokenism is what the BJP is doing, if somebody like Kharge can go beyond this and can work beyond it, and that would be marvelous for a party like Congress.
May I just come in here to remind our audience, and Rasheed, first you, and then I'll go back to Sugata. There was a time when Rahul Gandhi's Janayu, there is nothing, I think, more casteist than invoking a Brahminical thread, was invoked officially at a press conference. The Congress has long been trying to find its balance with ideology. Does it be the big tent space as it used to be once upon a time? Does it lean soft, towards Hinduism? Does it remain secular in the Nehruvian model? Does it remain secular in the Gandhian model? So this kind of ideological flexibility that Tharoor is being criticized for is probably applicable to several leaders in the Congress. But this point about Mr. Kharge and the Dalit symbolism, that actually being a powerful political vehicle, do you think that, or do you think that India is aspirational today, looking for a great story, a politician with a great story, which perhaps explains the rise of somebody like Arvind Kejriwal? Rasheed?
Yes, Barkha. So what I'm saying is, we are actually, judging the Congress presidential election with national politics. It has a very little, according to me, very little bearing on the national politics. This is an internal arrangement and mechanism. There's been a lot of Congress presidents,
You're saying who leads the Congress will have no impact on how the Congress
is insignificant.
Is
and I think that is where. Yeah, and that is where I think Rahul Gandhi has understood that. He has realized the futility of continuing as a Congress president. Therefore, he is trying to emerge as an alternative to Mr. Narendra Modi whenever situation arises in 2024 or beyond. So he's positioning himself for that, and that is why this Bharat Jodo Yatra, it's from south to north, and there will be another edition from east to west or west to east. So this is the thing. I think Congress is too much of a prisoner of its own kind of ideology or absence of it. It is not able to provide any kind of cutting edge. It is just, I've spoken to a lot of Congress people during this election time, and they say, can we afford to have a situation where a Dalit loses the Congress president's election? So, the whole thing, and you keep referring to the Sitaram Kesari, how he was ousted. We forget that the conspiracy to throw out Kesari was not Sonia Gandhi. She was not alone. There was Pranab Mukherjee, there was Madhav Sidhya, there was Dr. Manmohan Singh, there was Rajesh Pilot. You name a political leader, and they were all privy to this Sharad Pawar, Jitendra Prasad, to throw out Kesari. So it was not one person or one individual's decision. Everybody was part of it, and that's how so
Let me
unless
jump
the
in.
Congress
Yeah.
changes itself, we are not going
Yeah.
to see any change. And it is
What
electoral
I'm
success
not
that defines
convinced
everything.
what I'm not convinced about, with respect to you, you know how much I respect you, is that there's no connection between how the Congress is perceived outside of the Congress and who the Congress votes for.
It's a sideshow,
Sanjay,
as Jairam
okay,
Ramesh said.
what? It's a sideshow.
Yeah.
You know the day Jairam Ramesh tweeted in a clear swipe at Shashi Tharoor was the day that Mr. Tharoor spoke about meeting Sonia Gandhi and getting her consent for contesting, and he said everybody's free to contest. Why distract from the Bharat Jodo Yatra? Hang on, Sanjay. A lot of you have said things about what Sugata has said. I think I must give him a right to respond, and then I'll come to you and Kapil. Sugata, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Barkha. What Mr. Kapil and Sanjay have said, they're very passionately defending Mr. Tharoor, but they hardly know anything about Mr. Kharge. Mr. Kharge has spent 5 decades in politics, and Kapil said that what did he achieve as the leader of opposition? As a leader of opposition, he did not lead the party to the elections. It was Rahul Gandhi who led
But nor
the
is he
party
going
to
to lead it
elections.
now. Sadly, Mr. Srinivasaraju, nor
Barkha.
is he going to now. He's not asserting any
Correct.
autonomy for himself. Sorry, go ahead. Yes.
No. What I'm trying to say is Kharge is the best bet because Kharge is a consensus man. Hopefully he'll build a very good coalition in which Mr. Tharoor is also part of that coalition. In my Times article, which Professor sort of referred to, I end the article by saying that Mr. Kharge is the only man who's capable of building a team of rivals. I've never ruled out Mr. Tharoor. They're all getting me completely wrong. They're all completely, jumping on one little statement. You should remember you're fighting the cultural nationalism of BJP and the RSS. And this party has been a deracinated party for the last 30 years. And, they were completely gripped with economic arguments. Where are social ideas? Where are cultural ideas? See, this party has completely lost the... In fact, I have been very, very critical of Rahul Gandhi, and nobody in the Congress likes me because I've asked a lot of questions, including the Janayu question. Including the Janayu question that you asked, Barkha.
I was just going to say, welcome to my world. Welcome to my world. I think many of us here are equal opportunity offenders, and that's our job. That's our job.
So,
Kapil Komireddi, by the way, has been a ferocious critic of the Gandhi families and said that they must take their blame in the rise of the right wing. So this is not about being an apologist for the Gandhis.
Barkha, I'm only arguing for a certain kind of electoral pragmatism because you see Rahul Gandhi is fully focused on building an ideological kind of a counter to the RSS. We need some electoral pragmatism, which is a backroom kind of a thing. And Kharge is perfectly capable of putting together a coalition.
Okay, Sanjay first, then Kapil, and then Subhajit. Sanjay, there's an interesting argument by Sugata, and that is this. The Congress, you see, the BJP, at least when the Congress was in power and the BJP was the opposition, was seen as the kind of party of the middle class, the party that your next door neighbor could identify with. The Congress was seen as the drawing room party, right? There is some merit to Sugata raising this interesting question about pedigree elitism in the Congress party. He believes Mr. Kharge is better placed than Shashi to offset that image. Sanjay?
I think with due respects, but I think Sugata has completely missed the point. Is he even aware that today, if you do a poll, do a dipstick poll, or do a AC Nielsen research, the people of India will see Mr. Kharge as a puppet appointee of the Gandhi family. That completely defeats the very agenda that he talks about pursuing, this so-called electoral pragmatism. I also agree with both the academic professors here on the point of this Dalit vote. There are around 225 million Dalits in the country. If the Congress party is going to play an identity politics against a larger BJP strategy of a Hindutva ecosystem, of which Dalits are a constituent, it will be literally a committing political suicide, because it is myopic and, in my opinion, is deeply irrational. That look at the experience of Charanjit Singh Channi in Punjab. The Congress
Yeah.
talked about a Dalit vote, 30%, and look what happened. So I think, end of day is good to have this very academic pursuit of very esoteric terms. But I, being in politics, will tell you one thing, Barkha. Politics is about winning elections. It's
I
about
agree.
managing perceptions. It's about the future. It's about hope. The one word that decides politics is hope. Can I request both the professors to kindly look at why Obama won? The audacity of hope was a trigger to that big story.
Yeah, but I
And
think Charanjit Channi is a
Shashi
great
Tharoor,
example. Yeah.
yeah, and Shashi Tharoor is hope. It's a hope of change. Sugata, let me tell you, this morning, I'm not going to name her. It's a very veteran Congress political leader I've spoken to from Telangana. Do you know that there has been blatant rigging in the elections there? Everyone is talking about it. Kapil comes from Telangana. He will probably know the intricate details. Why would that be happening if the Congress party wasn't insecure about change? I'm a congressman, by the way, despite being suspended. So nobody can question my credibility or my commitment. So let me tell you that if you want electoral pragmatism, you need change. Status quoism is not going to
Okay.
get the
Okay.
Congress anywhere.
I'm almost at the out of time. I want to bring in Subhajit and give Kapil the last word, unless Rasheed wants to come in. Kapil, give me a second. Professor Subhajit, here's the question. Charanjit Channi is a very, very important example by Sanjay Jha. When you don't have a narrative and you don't have a leader, tokenism or symbolism, and I'm not undermining the value of symbolism. I think the fact that we have President Murmu, for example, is a symbolism that is powerful. We cannot negate symbolism, and I do not mean to do that. But symbolism by itself doesn't work. So, for example, if Mr. Kharge had asserted that he was going to be independent, this party was going to enter a new era, he was now not going to take his instructions from the Gandhi family, if he had not had these sort of sycophantic stories of naming his children or people in his family after the Gandhis, he would have had a better story. How can you ignore
Well,
that any leader needs a good story?
well, the bunch of questions that is thrown at the Dalit, the leaders that come from the Dalit and Adivasi communities, the same bunch of questions are really being thrown at the upper caste, leaders of Indian politics, which is what the sad reality of this country and the discussions in whatever it's public or private. But the bigger point is what Mr. Jha is basically pointing out is that it's an aspirational India, it's incredible India, it's about the youth and all that. But down the line, the bottom line, your own program, the bottom line is that you need to also stitch a lot of social coalitions. You need to also sort of stitch a lot of coalitions on the ground, and you have bunch of state elections are coming up, and these are the states where Congress plays a very important role. It's not like West Bengal, it's not other states, it's Madhya Pradesh, it's Rajasthan, Gujarat, and a lot of other states, Chhattisgarh, and then a general election. So,
Okay.
and these are the elections where, just give me a minute, Barkha, and these are the elections where Congress needs a political leader who can basically talk to the very, very high profile, veteran leaders. And you know how arrogant India's veteran politicians are, including Mamata Banerjee, where I come from, West Bengal. So they at times refuse to talk to a person like Rahul Gandhi. So here comes Kharge, if at all, who basically cannot be rejected on the ground of the age. And somebody like Kharge, who, as Mr. Raju was mentioning, who has a massive political experience, and Kapil was
Okay.
saying that this man, what he was doing in Rajya Sabha, what he was doing in Lok Sabha as a leader of the party. But these are the leaders; those give the alternative political discourse. They do not run the
Okay.
political system.
So Shugata has a brief introduction, then Kapil can wrap this up for us. Shugata? Hang on, sir, you're on mute. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just fact checking because this whole thing about Kharge naming his children after Rahul and
Is
Priyanka,
it
that's
true
not
or not?
correct
I
at
don't know.
all.
I've read it in
No,
the
no,
media.
it's absolutely bunkum because
Okay.
Mr. Kharge is a Buddhist of a very high order. If you don't know that, Milind, one of his sons is called Milind. It's all Buddhist names. So please don't,
Yes.
spread this thing about Mr. Kharge that
Yes.
he's a psychophant. He's named his children. I know the family, and I'm also not close to the family. So that's another thing. But to be fair to Mr.
No,
Kharge,
I'm happy to
he's
be corrected
a
because
Buddhist
that's, like
scholar
I
of
said,
a
this
very
is what
high
we read in
order.
the media. This is what we read in the media.
No, media is again rigged by the the English Anglophone people are rigging this in favor of Mr. Mr. Tharoor.
Okay,
So what can they
Rasheed,
do?
were you wanting to add something there on this media trope? I just wanted to point out another reality check that we used to say that only people from the north can actually win elections. Both of these candidates are from the south. So I just wanted to point out that irony that maybe the old tropes are changing. Rasheed, you want to add, and then I really do have to give Kapil the last word.
Just very briefly, Barkha, like for instance, your bottom line show. So you are the one who's conducting this entire thing. Who would speak in which order, all kind of things are done. Now imagine Congress is a very big political party. We're talking about state elections. We're talking about 2024. Would Mr. Kharge have that freedom to act? And that's the biggest thing. His caste, his experience, his all these things are secondary. If he can, that's what I'm saying. If he can appoint his political secretary, I would say yes. He has a chance. But would he? Can he replace Mr. K.C. Venugopal? I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not getting into the academic part, which was quite delightful to hear. But I'm saying in a very pragmatic terms. That's the problem. That is the question that Congress needs to respond.
Okay, Kapil, here's the question. One narrative will go, this is a Dalit leader, he's a consensus builder, he'll lend that pragmatism that is needed at a time when the party is going to need allies. He'll have that cross-party gravitas that Shashi Tharoor will not. The other narrative will go, Shashi Tharoor is a leader of the future, Mr. Kharge is a leader of the past. The sycophancy, it comes from Mr. Kharge's repeated assertions that his boss will be the Gandhi family. It's an assertion that Shashi Tharoor is not making. Last word to you, Kapil.
I just want to say that among other evils about Shashi Tharoor, I learned today is that he controls the media. That was quite the thing to learn. He's rigging the media. There are a couple of things. One of the things I find very difficult to abide about what Sugata is saying, and it's representative of that kind of thought, is that he talks as though he's plugged into some higher reality, which we who speak English cannot access. He sees India in a way we can't see it, and I find that I completely reject that. Kharge filed his nomination a day before. Sorry, may I please have a say? Kharge filed his nomination a day before the nominations closed. So this whole backstory that is being created for him, that is the great, tribune of the Dalit people of India, that he's going to lead Congress to its destiny, that he's going to rescue India, that is all being fabricated right now. He wasn't even in the fray. He'd lost his own seat. He was in the Rajya Sabha. And he showed up at the last minute when Gehlot pulled out to be the surrogate of the Gandhi family. Shashi Tharoor has been on the vanguard from the very beginning, and this he was brought in, as you quite astutely put it, Barkha. He is not going to take orders from the Gandhis, so therefore Kharge has been brought in to foil him. Now this idea that because Shashi speaks English, Shashi speaks better Hindi than the longest serving leader of the Congress party. Have you heard Sonia Gandhi speak Hindi? She can't do Hindi, she can't do English. He does both better than her. I'm sorry to say this. And with respect to Kharge, I don't think he's going to mobilize anybody. The median age of Indians is 27. Mallikarjun Kharge was born during the reign of the last emperor of British India. For a party that spent the past decade telling us that it was the savior of the youth of India, to foist this man upon our country bespeaks the contempt they feel for the people of India.
Okay, strong words there. We'll leave it there. We'll hope to have some of you back in 2 days from now when we will know the results. So listening to this panel, I think almost all of us agree that it's a foretold conclusion, which is a pity, because if the Congress was trying to say that this is truly a sort of open, level playing field. Sorry, Sugata, I know you have a point, but this will carry on. So let's bring you back day after, and we can talk some more. In the meantime, thank you to Kapil, to Sugata, to Subhajit, Sanjay, and Rasheed Kidwai. Thank you, and to our audience. See you tomorrow, same time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.